Hello, everybody. It's Julie from Jabbering with Julie. And hello, here we are once again with
Oh, you're with
Joshua and
Joshua KK.
Kiki.
Yeah,
Did I pronounce it right?
you're right.
It's a great last name. It has a great sound to it.
No, thank you. Thank you.
And the topic for today is how to do a podcast inexpensively. We don't want to say cheap. We're not cheap. We just want to do things inexpensively. That's what we want. And I know you had some questions that you're very interested in this topic. So I'm like, well, let's do a video.
Thank you. Thank you for the video as well. It's quite interesting to know more.
And we should also say that you've helped me out in the past with a lot of graphics and stuff for my video, a lot of behind the scenes work for the video. So I want to thank you for that. You're very talented. Why
Oh,
don't you tell everybody a little about yourself before we get into the meat of the video?
okay. My name is Joshua KK. I'm the firstborn of four kids of my dad and a mining student currently doing my master's at the Federal University of Technology. I'm a sports writer, video editor, content creator. I'm also a certified leadership expert in terms of I am more interested into the youth and their mindsets. Uh, just everything that has to do with positivity and giving people hope and giving Africa the kind of positive light it needs despite all the what's against it. So that's me.
Because you're currently living in Nigeria. We should talk. We
Yeah,
should tell people
currently.
specifically. That's
Yeah,
where
I'm currently living in Nigeria.
I didn't even mention about the sports writing you've done for us. And we want to thank you for that as well. You're very talented, multi-talented, and a ray of sunshine and always full of positivity. And the world needs more Joshuas.
Just as the world need more Julie, right?
And when we get together, look out.
It would actually be great.
I have been accused of being a little too perky, but that's just me. I'm sorry.
It's a good trait, actually.
All right, so let's get into it. I was talking to someone the other day and they were like, "Oh, I'm going to try to, raise $5,000 so I can set up a podcast studio." And I'm like, "You don't have to start off that way. Yeah, if you want to have all the equipment and have people sit around with all the arms, the mic arms, and that is a totally different thing. And if you want to do that, you can work up to that. But a ton of people just podcast right from their laptops. In fact, this video that we're doing today will also be converted into an audio podcast that I'll put out on my podcast server. And just recently, I've just started creating a ton of content again. So look out, people. There's a lot more of Julie D coming at you. I kind of feel like my topics are all over the place. So there's a little something for everybody. So, anyways, it all starts with a topic. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to have a podcast. I'm going to go get all this stuff." The very first thing you need to do is figure out what are you going to talk about. And you have to have a ton of ideas because a podcast is episodes, right? Multiple episodes. And you have to figure out what you're going to talk about. And can you talk about that? I would say you probably have to start with at least 100 ideas for episodes because you're going to look at the list and maybe you're going to throw some out and maybe some will give you ideas for other ones, but it's all about pre-planning. And okay, so you have a topic. Who are you talking to? Let's say it's a topic about fashion. Are you talking to students? Or are you talking to celebrities? Are you talking to fashion for parents, for working moms, for single women? The more detailed, the more granular, the more niche you can get, the most successful that you could be. Like if your topic is, I'm just going to talk about whatever's on my mind today. Well, it's like too broad and it's hard to find an audience for you. It's like, well, anybody that breathes. And this is true with businesses as well. If you're starting a business, you have to figure out who your target market is. And a lot of people say, I just target people with money. Marketing a podcast is like marketing your business, and it all starts with your topic, what are you selling or what are you talking about, and are who would you like to listen? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the audience makes sense. Getting an audience, the right audience makes sense.
So are you thinking about doing a podcast, and what would be your topic?
Okay, my topic would be leadership and sports.
Right. And are you talking about to people like students or just anybody, any specific age group or locality?
And I think age group actually, young, in terms of our locality, African is more of my concern and just young African youth.
Okay, well, see, that's a start. And so the other thing that you should do once you have a topic and you have an audience, you have to come up with your episodes. What are you going to talk about? What order are you going to talk about it? Because obviously, on episode 8, you can refer back to episode 1, and you can even link to it when you're putting the information out. The first episode, though, should be an intro of what this whole podcast is going to be about. And that's the good place to start. And you can come up with a plan. You can even have a series. You can have 4 episodes about leadership within the family. These are just examples. You could have 6 episodes about leadership for your siblings, or leadership within the students, being active in school and leadership roles. I mean, so you can have a series too. And the more you plan this stuff out, the better it is for people experiencing and listening and wanting to come back for future episodes. Because you're like, wow, and then my next episode, we're going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And they're like, wow, maybe I should subscribe to this so I don't miss the next episode. And Joshua, you have a lot of experience in videos, so that knowledge can be transferred to podcasts as well. In regards to even thinking, if you come up with a topic, obviously you have to come up with a look and like graphics for your podcast. So I know you have a lot of experience in doing videos and graphics that can translate very easy to podcast. There's a new podcast that I've been working on called Fuzzy Things in the Corner of the Kitchen. And I created a graphic using AI with a fur ball like in the corner of like a commercial kitchen. And I have been having so much fun with this little fuzzball and using that in other like content. For example, I have a graphic talking about how Swenson's, I think it was Swenson's, like the one that came out with the first frozen dinner, or yeah, I think it was frozen dinner. And so I did a graphic about that. It looks like a historical piece. And on the graphic, I had the little fuzzy guy there in the oven looking out through the oven door. If you can create a little character that kind of goes along with the podcast, like a mascot, that kind of helps. And people don't usually think about this till later. But I've created a couple of these in the past and I've never really done that. But now that I do that, it's like the National Coffee Cup Day or whatever. I had him like peeking out of a coffee cup. And there's just so much more whimsical and fun things you can do if you have something like that. Now, I also need to talk about the tone, though. If what you're talking about is a serious tone, whatever topic you have, you should think about: is it going to be whimsical? Is it very serious? And I'm telling you that if you can take some type of topic, even like leadership, and make it a little more lighthearted and not heavy, you'll get also more people. It's a challenge coming up with a look and a feel and a tone for your topic. But I think the pre-planning is the hardest part, figuring out all of this. And things can change along the way. My little fuzzball was really not 3-dimensional when I first created them. I just created them in Canva and very 2-dimensional. And then I went the AI route. And so your mascot or your look can evolve. There's nothing wrong with that. The more you think about it ahead of time, the better, for sure. Any questions about that stage?
Yeah, I really appreciate the place where you talked about the leadership, the diversity of where you can actually do it, the series creation, and the ability to communicate it in terms of tone, the feel, not giving the whole seriousness look, passing the message lightheartedly, and it actually reach out to more people than just the that kind of feel. Yeah, thank you.
When you talk to people, obviously other people are going to be watching too. It's nice to have a target in mind, but it's not like only those people are going to be watching. And the other thing you should do is, if you can, is find other podcasters and see what they do and how they do it. And you can research podcasters in your niche, in what you're going to do, but you can also just anything, any topic that you're interested in, you could see how other people are doing their podcast. And you're going to, by doing that, you're going to see what you like and what you don't like. You're going to get ideas. And sometimes it's better than just shooting in the dark. I've listened to quite a few podcasts, and there's certain things I don't like about them. So I'm not going to put that in mind. Or I get some ideas from them. It's like, oh, well, maybe I should do that. Have a little intro music and different things like that. But be careful, because and depending on what platform you're putting it on, if you use music, make sure you have the use of the music. People will
Yeah.
just go out and take a really cool, 10 seconds of a song that they like and put it on the podcast, either a one time or as a recurring thing. And especially YouTube it really catches stuff like that, even just a little bit of a piece of a song. So that's another thing to think about. Have you ran into that problem when you did videos, Joshua?
I haven't been into that problem because I remember working with you then. You gave us the song for the Shizu and Sizu. Oh, I can't remember this. Something Sizu, the story of the book. I think that's what we do it. And I think for the music, those times where I got to work, I use reality free music from Epi Sounds and all those kind of software. I think the only time I've encountered something similar is in terms of graphics before that has the mock-up and yeah, stuff on it. I think that's the only time I've gotten to experience that.
Yeah, definitely. If you have friends that you can pull in to be involved, it's nice to have, like this basically, this is a podcast that we're doing. Having a conversational style where two people talk about things is nice, versus just like a one person. But one person can be a talking head. It's like a reporter, kind of like what I do with Jabbering with Julie. So you also have to think, am I going to involve other people? Well, then you have to get their input too. Maybe they have ideas. It has to be someone that you work well with. Although if you don't get along, that tension on the podcast might create more viewers. But you have to think of your mental health, and you don't want to be stressed out. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's like TV shows. They always add like characters that are opposite. So the audience seems to like that better, depending on the target audience, I guess. But there are a lot of things to think about. And it's perfect if you have a friend that's doing a podcast, because then you can be on each other's podcast. You can share each other's podcasts on, because obviously you're going to have to set up some kind of platform to promote this on, and you can share each other's content. But another thing you can do, either before or after you do a podcast, is be a guest on another podcast. And there are Facebook groups. Just type in guest, like in Facebook, type in as a search guest on a podcast. There's people looking for guests, because some people, maybe they're more interested in having guests than their own topic. It seems to be, because I see them always looking for like a new guest per show. So that's always another good idea, is being a guest. And once you have your podcast up and running, you can have guests on your show. And of course, they're on your show. So they're going to promote that show, that episode, to their network. No man is an island. You have to work with friends, work with other people, get to know other podcasters. It is a really nice community. I'm in a couple of podcast groups on Facebook, and everybody is helping each other and making suggestions. You just have to avoid the people that are like, I can help promote your podcast. Some groups don't allow those, so it makes it for a nicer experience in the Facebook group. But other ones are always like trying to promote what they're doing. So look for a group that, if you can, if you don't want to see a lot of promotion, look for a podcast group that is more about encouraging each other and supporting each other and listening to each other's episodes. I think that happens a lot. All right, so let's say you figured out your topic and you figured out all of the things that we talked about. You have your graphics and you have your lineup of your episodes. You should also come up with a little, when you're creating your assets, like your graphics, your name. We haven't even talked about a name. It's so hard to pick a name. When I was talking to Kevin about the food podcast, we were throwing out all kinds of names and brainstorming, just like crazy things. When you're brainstorming, you just kind of like spew all the words that you're thinking of. Some of them are not going to be correct, but they might give someone another idea. So we were doing that, and I said, oh, because the idea behind the podcast is about the things about kitchens, especially like commercial kitchens, restaurant kitchens, the things that nobody talks about. And I'm like, yeah, it's like the fuzzy thing in the corner of the kitchen, it gets kicked around. And Kevin's like, I love it. I love it. That's it. And it was more of like a joke, really. But sometimes when you're just like brainstorming like that, it's not like, okay, we must come up with 10 ideas and have it all structured. It's more more creative. Now, have you ever had to name something? What have you done if you had to create something and give it a name?
If I had to give it a name, I think there was the time I was writing and I wrote Joshua Talks. So I
Right
was
talks, yeah,
just so
exactly.
Joshua Talks. So that was what came off my head right now. Just at the spot.
Right, exactly. And sometimes off the top of your head is the like I get like I was saying, it's not so regimented. But I was thinking, you're a writer and you always have to think of the title for the story.
That's
So
right.
you have to be creative with that as well. You can even type in Google, put in your niche that you're going to talk about, and ask Google, ask AI. If you just go crazy and write it every which way you can on paper, on a computer, and search and everything, it's going to come to you. It's going to come to you, and maybe not the idea for the name isn't necessarily it's not going to be the one you expect. In my opinion, it's how it usually happens. Like Jabbering with Julie was a total accident. Somebody was suggesting, like from my newspaper, a section that would be on a certain thing. And she mentioned Jabbering with Julie, and that just clicked in my head. And it was just like, that wasn't how she intended me for to use it, but it just stuck for some reason. And so sometimes the name that you end up picking is not what, like I said, not how you envisioned it, but the name is very important. And for me, I want to create a name that makes people say, what is that? What is that? That's the reaction I want to get from people. From it makes them want to click, makes them want to learn more. If you can have your target market in the title, you can come up with a fun, catchy thing, whatever you want to call it, and then say leadership for students or whatever. So leadership would be your topic and students would be your target. So if you can have your topic and your target in the title along with your catchy phrase, um, that would be the perfect title. Now, if you have a title like Fuzzy Things in the Corner of the Kitchen, there is no room for that. But I'm talking about the perfect title, not the one I chose.
Mm-hmm.
This is something people don't even think of, but your podcast is going to be found in the search engines, and your titles, your descriptions, all of that needs to have good keywords. So when you're researching all these episodes and what your topics and everything, you should also look up and do research on what keywords you should be talking about. I always use this example. Used car salesmen usually don't want to call themselves used car salesmen. They're like, we sell pre-owned cars. But when people are searching, people are going to search for used cars. So that's just an example. You have to think of keywords that you normally wouldn't even want to talk about, but that's what people are searching on. We haven't even gotten to creating the podcast yet. Look how time flies. If people want more information about a certain part of doing podcast, we can do like a second one.
Mhm.
I'm going to go into the details now. The best advice I can give you for doing a podcast is to use Buzzsprout. Go to buzzsprout.com and I can have a link down in the description where you can get like, I think $20 off. But and there is a free version of it, but you can't upload too many hours, but it's a good thing to start with. So what Buzzsprout will do, and this blew my mind when I first found it, and I researched a lot of the popular ones. It will, once you upload it there, well, once you start your account, you have to register your podcast on all of the podcast networks, and you can do all that within Buzzsprout. So you can register to be having your podcast on Apple, on Alexa, on iHeartRadio, YouTube. It'll automatically put the audio up on YouTube. Spotify is included. All of the major podcast networks, plus a bunch of other ones. So I think that is a beautiful thing. Now you're still going to post your podcast in other places like your social media and things like that. But those podcast networks, once you sign up, and sometimes it takes a couple days to get registered on them, but others it just takes 24 hours and you're in. And then if you have a device like I do here, you can be like, hey, play the podcast, blah, 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 and it'll play it. And the day you do that for your podcast is just like something so cool. But it's very easy with Buzzsprout. Now, Buzzsprout does have some options. So you're going to put a description in. You'll basically have a website for your podcast where you can create like a little blog post for each one of your episodes. And you can also check the box if there's any kind of profanity. Some people can't talk without the F-bombs. So you can check that so people would know that. You also can pay a little extra, and it will create some suggested titles for your episode based on what they think it would be good. And it might give you ideas for your title of your episode. Because we talk about coming up with a title for your podcast, but every episode, like an article, needs a title. So it'll suggest titles for you. It'll put in chapters for you. It'll also do the transcription. I can't tell you how much stuff it does. It's amazing. I would pay extra for that. And I do. Now there's another program I use, Descript. And what I use that one for, it costs something, but it's very inexpensive especially for what it does. It will edit your audio and video. If like this is a podcast episode, that would be a video and an audio. But it also works if you just have audio. Basically, you upload your video or audio of your podcast, and it shows you the transcription. It shows you the words, kind of like if you're in a Word document. And then you just delete the words you don't want, and it deletes it from the video and the audio. So if I say which I do a lot, if you saw in the transcription, it'd be like if I delete the words it takes those words out of the video and creates a pretty seamless transition from what I was saying before and then after, and you take it out. You can edit your whole podcast like that and make you sound better. It does help a lot. And then sometimes in your podcast, maybe you started talking about something and you're like, I really shouldn't have said that. You can take out the whole paragraph. Like, why did I start talking about that? I really got off topic. So I really recommend Descript. Now you can also create the transcript from there if you like, but once I'm done with it from Descript, I download it and then I upload it into Buzzsprout, and then Buzzsprout creates a transcript. But basically, it doesn't matter. You could use whatever you want. While you're also in Descript, you can actually add really cool captions to the video, because obviously you're editing the video too. And there's a ton of other options. Like you can shoot your podcast, like the video, like wide format like this, but in Descript, you can crop it so it's more of the portrait format for TikTok and some of the other ones. Even though now TikTok and Instagram, they don't have a problem with wide formats as much as they used to. But and there's a ton more options in Descript. But this isn't a video about Descript, but you can find tons of videos about Descript and Buzzsprout if you just search. But those two programs will definitely take a big load off. I see people searching all the time. They buy these expensive programs to edit the video, but it doesn't even do all of these things that Descript does. It's more of a new age, and it does use AI. And so does Buzzsprout. So I think these two products, anything you bought like 10 years ago to edit videos is probably not going to have AI in it unless they've kept it up to date. And another program that would be helpful for creating your artwork is Canva. Have you ever used Canva?
Yeah, I use Canva even for
Yes,
presentations.
yes. And I mean, you can create anything with Canva. It's beautiful. And you can even create some AI images. But yeah, back in the day, people used to use Adobe. I think Adobe has lost a lot of customers to Canva. And I do see Adobe is now adding all these new features and everything, but in my personal opinion, it seems like it's come along a little bit too late. And I believe, I'm not sure, people could prove me wrong. I think Canva is less expensive than Adobe as well. I think you have to get the Adobe Cloud, but I haven't been on Adobe in a while. Right now, the only thing I pay it for is I have a PDF editor, but that's a whole other story. But I'm just saying, these programs that have been around forever need to keep evolving with the times.
Right.
And it's difficult when you've been doing something for 30 years and suddenly like having to do the new stuff. For example, I started learning Twitter back when it was called Twitter in 2008 when I went to a search engine conference. And that's when I fell in love with Twitter, and that's when I learned about Facebook. And it it was totally different back then. Obviously, Twitter has evolved into X.com, and the founder of it, I think his last name is Dorsey. He left a long time ago. He didn't like the direction it was going or whatever, and now he started, I think, a year ago, Blue Sky. So you have to keep evolving. And if you're working for an organization and it's not working out, sometimes you have to go start again. And there's a lot of examples of that as well. So my advice to businesses is keep up, and you have to keep, like for these tech companies, they have to keep good, very talented workers. Otherwise they'll go and start their own thing. And that, I think that's everybody's worry. It's like when you come up with this great thing and it's created with these great employees, and then it's like, well, there's nothing to stop them from going and doing their own thing. So you got to watch out for that. Whew. Okay, so let's say you have your podcast, your first episode up on Buzzsprout, and you have all the chapters, and you have the blog post. You have a blog post within there too. Everything is in there. Now you have to promote it with social media. Just putting it on the podcast networks is only the very beginning. And with social media, it's like you have to figure out what accounts you're going to set up. And that all depends on your target audience. If I was targeting 21-year-olds, I would not spend a lot of time on Facebook, because they're generally not spending a lot of time on Facebook. So look at your target audience and where are they hanging out? And that's where you need to put your content. I don't mean physically, I mean like on the internet. It seems like everybody's on TikTok. They even have like a hashtag for the over 40 club. And I know that the young people are annoyed by that because the Facebook started being like from college students. And yeah, it was Zuckerberg and everything. Everybody knows that story. But, and then over time, the adults started taking it over and the kids got so annoyed. But I think TikTok has been doing a really good job of keeping the young people. And I think it's great for all ages. But my advice for people putting content on a platform like TikTok or Facebook or whatever, you can't have just one. I know some, for example, some farms that are putting up content on TikTok, making money, a lot of money. And there's threats that they'll take TikTok down and they're just like appalled. Oh no. And it's got to put your content on at least YouTube, at least put it on YouTube as well. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket because you do not own any of those platforms and they could, Zuckerberg could be like, peace out, people, I'm shutting this down. You just never know. So you have to think about that. And that is something that a mistake that I see people make is they put everything on TikTok. Or back in the day, it was YouTube. They didn't use any other platform. They just put everything on YouTube. And then YouTube over, hopefully they're done now, but they would keep changing the rules for monetization. And one day they're making a ton of money and the next day they're not. So it's very kind of stressful. And the TikTok problem, I mean, isn't unique. It happened a long time ago with YouTube. So I like putting all this stuff out on social media. Everybody can learn how to post stuff. And one of the other nice things about Buzzsprout is you can actually take a little snippet of the podcast. It'll create a little snippet for you. You can select the timeline, like 30 seconds, and then it'll give you the code, and then you can put that out as a social media post promoting it. It'll even give you the text for the social media post if you want. So that's built right in. You could also create shorts on Descript, short little video of the podcast too, and put that out as content. You don't want to keep putting out the same thing and it'll look like, that's why you should have a different graphic for every episode. Otherwise it looks like the same episode over and over again. Oh my goodness. So along with the traditional social media, when I said if it's about like 21-year-olds probably don't need to be on Facebook, but Facebook groups is a little bit different. You might find that whatever your audience is, go on Facebook groups and see if there are a place where, your target market if they hang out. Like maybe it's a podcast about spirituality, church and things like that. There's groups for everything. There's like groups for people that like bananas. There's groups for people that like to talk about fabric, buttons. There's Facebook groups for people that love buttons. A podcast about buttons. I think that was on an episode of Murders in the Building. But anyways, I do that show Only Murders in the Building. Again, it has a long title. And it makes me want to watch it. But yeah, so find, and it's not just Facebook groups, but Facebook groups are a place where a lot of people come together around one topic. But do searches on internet and trying to find it. I was talking about Facebook groups for podcaster. That's a great place. Some Facebook groups will allow you to drop your podcast. And of these platforms like TikTok and YouTube, once you post something, Facebook is the same. The platform will send your video out to a target group of people. And if a lot of people start engaging with it, liking, commenting, and sharing it, it'll show it to more people. So that's how you slowly can go viral. But they don't just blast it out to 10,000 people right away. They send it out. The funnest thing to do is put up something and then keep refreshing it. So the likes are going up, the views are going up. It's fun. I had a series of TikTok videos get a lot more reach than expected because it was for a theater that was opening up, and I knew it was going to do well because everybody was really excited about a new theater, and it has the lounge seats and different rooms. Different theaters there have different themes, so I was really looking forward to this. And this young guy gave me a tour of all these different theaters, and I did 6 videos because they're all different. And I think it was probably like the last one got the most reach because I was out of breath and I was holding my phone and shooting the video. I didn't really say that a lot. And I let the guy talk. And I was holding the phone close to me. And so it picked up my breathing. So I swear to God, half the comments are about, is Darth Vader videoing this? I think somebody's sleeping in the theater. And so, but those comments, the more people commented, then TikTok was showing it to other people, and then people were sharing it. And so it's all about engagements. It really is. You can put stuff out there, but what you want to do is create content that people are going to engage with. And when sometimes it's like a silly thing. I know a lot of video people will put like weird things in their background. So people will come back just to see, did he move the teddy bear onto the other side? Or, and this is like perfect for me. When I went to a social media conference in San Diego, one of the video experts was saying, don't be perfect. Say the wrong thing and and have your hair be. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect for me. If you've watched any of my videos, I say the wrong words. I can't think of things. And I think a lot of people think I can't do things because I'm not perfect. I mess up. I don't always know what I'm talking about. People want real people. They don't want talking heads that are perfect. I guess that's my number one takeaway is you don't have to be perfect to have a podcast. Drop the mic. No.
Interesting.
Whew, that's a lot. I know it's a lot. I think we probably only have about like maybe 9 minutes left, but do you have questions?
Not really, because I see you're more concentrated on Buzzsprout. At first, what I was researching on was the Riverside.fm and the ability you can actually audio. And while you were talking, I was thinking, okay, the names were kind of coming in. I had them written down. I had student growth. I had,
Yes.
yeah, I had leadership for students. I had grow up Joshua. I had learn my role. Like they were just coming in. I was writing them down.
Yes, yes. And if you're out and about and you're sometimes like ideas will come while you're taking a shower or while you're driving. Try to record your ideas on your phone or write it on a scrappy, a napkin or whatever, because you think you're going to remember it later. You may or you may
Right.
not. But yeah, once you start, you know, just going on with it's really going to be hard to concentrate. Sometimes I become the absent-minded professor here at home because I'm so thinking about all these creative things, and I might forget, oh my gosh, look at the time. I forgot to have lunch or something like that. But yeah, I think creative people have, when you really go down the zone and you really are down that path, it sometimes reality could just go away for a little time. So, but I love when that happens.
That's
love
very great.
I love creating things. And I think some people think, oh, I'm not creative. I couldn't do that. I think everybody has a creative part to them, and some people haven't explored it yet.
I believe that as well. I believe that. So we are created to be creative. If there's a word like that.
Yeah, so they can do it. You can do it. I'll be Rob Schneider. I don't know if you know who that
Quite interesting. Wow.
So yeah, so maybe if you get your podcast up and running, we can have you back on and you can tell us about it. Now, you mentioned Riverside. I do see a lot of people talking about Riverside. I think that's kind of new. Years ago, the place to be was StreamYard for shooting videos. And that was like the thing. And I tried it for a while and I just didn't like it. Personally, there was parts of it I didn't like. And now I see people talking about StreamYard saying they doubled the price and everybody is going to Riverside. So I haven't done the research on Riverside versus Buzzsprout, but I don't know if they have. To me, the best part is how it puts it out to all the podcast servers for you. When you're looking at two different platforms, look at what works best for you and weigh everything out. But sometimes I have to move to a different platform because now I remember years ago we used to post all of our social media, a lot of our social media posts through something called Hootsuite. And Hootsuite last year, I think it was more than doubled their price. So we're like, I'll just post everything by hand because sometimes these other programs are glitchy and they don't, you schedule it and it doesn't schedule. And it's so I've been leaning more toward just going on each platform. I have a tab for each one of them and it's okay, I'm going to post to X. And I'm a freak. I have to post everywhere. I'm not recommending everybody do that, but I post individually one at a time. And I think so. I'm not sure if I could recommend buying a program where you can post it out to multiple social media platforms at once. For example, like within Facebook, there's like a meta business that you can post to. You can post to Instagram and Facebook, and you can even adjust them both, which is nice. So staying on the platform, obviously Facebook wants you to do that, and obviously Meta owns both. But there's something nice about that. And then while I'm on Facebook, I can just share it to my groups, which a lot of the software like Hootsuite, it didn't have the functionality I wanted to share into groups. So I don't know. I've been doing social media, like I said, since 2008. And I really think that it's, if you can go on each one and post them out, like on X and Facebook, you can still schedule them for later. So you don't have to put everything out at the same time. And other platforms might have that as well. Oh, like I said, there's just, and each area that we talked about, you could have a podcast just about picking a name. You could have a podcast just about how to write a description for your show. So this is very, very overview. But it's a question I see a lot of people asking. And there may be better ways to do it, but this is the way I do it. And it's very inexpensive, which is always, especially with the economy here where we are. I don't know how your economy is, but it's really getting tough lately.
It's quite very, very, very tough right now. Very,
So we have to,
very.
look at every expense. And like, for example, I'm toying with the idea of paying for the pro version of CapCut because I really like the pro features. Every little expense I have to really think about and how much I'm using it and how beneficial it would help. So yeah, but I think unless you have any more questions, we can always, if people have more questions, we can always do another show about that, an episode, because it seems like back in the day, everybody wanted to write a book. Everybody had a book in them. Now I think everybody wants to do a podcast or be a guest.
It's podcast is actually very helpful, and we saw the role it's played in the election. So it's quite interesting. People are getting to be more present in people's life through podcasts than books nowadays.
Yes, yes. And I think it's a
And
great
thank
way
you
for
for,
people to express themselves. It's like
yeah.
people, they don't want to just read something, they want to tell everybody what they think about it.
At least you won't get misunderstood, right?
Yes.
You won't
Yeah,
get
you don't want to
misunderstood.
get, yeah. I wouldn't suggest doing podcasts about political topics, but other people dive right into that. But that's not me. I avoid it like the plague.
I can see that.
Talk about evolution. It's like I was doing ordonihills.news and now I feel like that kind of you know the topic, some of the content we were limited to in some ways. But now that I've embraced another brand I just happen to have, Jabbering with Julie, and now that's why I say I'm Julie Without Borders, because I can go into Twinsburg and talk about a business over there without people from Nordonia shooting me. Because what are you doing over there? It's like, get away. Don't talk to the neighbors. No. they're so close to us. They're right down the street, and it's like they shop here, we shop there. There's really no, it's not like the people in this community here don't go in other communities to shop. So that's why I decided to break free of chains and
That's
expand.
fair.
So again, I think even if you're doing a podcast, if it evolves, that's probably a healthy podcast. Oh, but anyways, I guess my takeaway for people is that they can do it. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to have something to say and know how to use these tools. And there is a little bit of cost associated with it, but you can control that by how many hours you put up, and at least it's a set amount. You can budget for however much that you sign up for. But thank you for being a person to talk to, because I want to do a video about how to do a podcast, but it's much better to have somebody asking questions and interacting with me. So this way you're jabbering with Julie.
Thank you. Thank you for being a source of hope to someone like me as well, too, and the opportunities you actually give us. Thank you.
Have a great day. Talk to you later.